terrible.
Like, guys, you don't.
Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time?
He's truthful about a lot of the things he says in Spare about this. Well, we want that story to die.
The internet erupted overnight after Joe Rogan's name was dragged into a controversy that instantly set timelines on fire, not because he released evidence, but because his words were taken somewhere no one expected. Clips began circulating with captions screaming "exposed." Even though no photos were shown, no names were directly confirmed, and no proof ever appeared publicly. But once the rumor engine kicked in, facts became optional. Suddenly, Meghan Markle's name was trending alongside recycled claims, old conspiracy threads, and speculation involving figures she has never publicly addressed in that context. Fans panicked, critics pounced, and the phrase "yacht photos" began circulating despite nothing verifiable being released. The story wasn't fueled by evidence. It was fueled by implication, timing, and a podcast discussion that spiraled out of control online. Joe Rogan didn't claim to have photos. No outlet confirmed any images exist. No credible source verified the allegation. And yet, the internet treated it like a bombshell. Social media went into overdrive, with users dissecting Rogan's tone, Meghan's silence, and the absence of any official response. Some claimed this was damage control. Others argued it was another example of how rumors about Meghan metastasize without restraint. What was undeniable was the chaos, the speed at which a speculative narrative transformed into assumed truth. The real question isn't whether anything was exposed. It's how fast a rumor can become reality in the public imagination when a powerful name, a controversial figure, and a loaded implication collide. The rumor didn't arrive quietly. It erupted, riding the name recognition of three of the most polarizing figures in modern celebrity culture. It started with clipped audio, cropped captions, and a handful of accounts claiming that something big had been referenced on a podcast. No documents, no images, no primary source. Just implication, and that was more than enough to ignite the internet. At the center of the storm was the Joe Rogan experience, after listeners began circulating snippets from a broader conversation that had nothing to do with verified allegations. The problem wasn't what was said, it was how it was reframed. Rogue captions slapped words like "exposed" and "secret photos" onto audio that never claimed such things existed. Context evaporated, reaction took over. Joe Rogan himself never presented evidence. He never named Meghan Markle in the way headlines implied. He never produced photos, documents, or claims of first-hand knowledge. But once his name was attached, the algorithm did the rest. Suddenly, Meghan Markle was trending again, not for a speech, not for a project, but for recycled conspiracy theories that have followed her for years. Old forum posts resurfaced. Debunked threads were reposted without disclaimers. Screenshots of screenshots circulated, stripped of dates, sources, or credibility. The phrase "yacht photos" began appearing everywhere, even though no such images were ever produced publicly. This is how modern rumor culture works. If a claim sounds scandalous enough, people assume someone else must have verified it already. Responsibility dissolves. The burden shifts to the subject to disprove something that was never proven in the first place. The narrative escalated further when Prince Andrew's name was pulled in, not by Rogan, not by any verified outlet, but by commenters connecting dots that were never part of the original discussion. Prince Andrew has long been associated with controversy, which made the pairing feel believable to some, even though believability is not evidence. Once that connection appeared in captions, the rumor mutated from gossip into something far more toxic: assumed association. Social media didn't slow down to ask how or why these names were being linked. Instead, timelines filled with dramatic language. Damage control, panic mode, it's finally coming out. None of it sourced, none of it verified, just confident declarations repeating each other until they felt true by volume alone. Meghan's silence became a Rorschach test. To supporters, it was the obvious response to nonsense, "you don't dignify baseless claims." To critics, it was strategic. To conspiracy-minded corners, it was confirmation. The same silence, three completely different stories. That's the danger of implication. It allows the audience to decide intent without access to facts. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan's role was distorted beyond recognition. Clips were edited down to seconds. Tone was exaggerated. Words were reinterpreted. The idea that Rogan had exposed something spread faster than any attempt to clarify that he hadn't. This is the paradox of virality. Corrections never travel as fast as accusations. Creators jumped in to capitalize. YouTube thumbnails screamed bombshell. TikTok creators used ominous music and slow zooms. Twitter Spaces ran for hours, dissecting a rumor built entirely on inference. Each layer of commentary added confidence, not accuracy. And with every share, the narrative hardened. What got lost entirely was a simple truth: extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And in this case, no evidence had surfaced at all. No photos, no first-hand accounts, no credible reporting, just a feedback loop of speculation amplified by recognizable names. Industry observers noted the familiar pattern. When public figures already exist at the center of polarized narratives, they become magnets for rumor. Meghan Markle, in particular, has spent years navigating a media environment where speculation often precedes fact. This moment fit that pattern perfectly, a story fueled less by information than by appetite. By the end of this phase, the rumor had achieved escape velocity. It no longer needed Joe Rogan. It no longer needed a source. It didn't even need coherence. It lived because people wanted it to. No outlet confirmed it. No evidence supported it. No authority validated it. And yet the internet behaved as if something had already been revealed when in reality nothing had been shown at all. The most unsettling part wasn't the rumor itself. It was how easily a podcast discussion, stripped of context and weaponized by captions, could morph into an international scandal overnight. How fast implication replaced verification, and how quickly silence was transformed into narrative. The next phase of this story isn't about photos or podcasts. It's about whether truth has any chance of catching up once speculation decides it's done waiting. As the second wave rolled in, the story stopped being about what was actually said and became about what people believed had been implied. The rumor had matured. It no longer needed fresh material, it fed on interpretation. Timelines filled with confident declarations, not questions. Commenters spoke as if a reveal had already happened, even though no photos, documents, or first-hand accounts had ever surfaced. At this stage, the internet's attention snapped back to Meghan Markle with renewed intensity. Her silence, standard practice in the face of baseless claims, was rebranded by critics as panic and damage control. Supporters pushed back, arguing that responding to conspiracy only validates it. The same absence of comment generated opposite conclusions, proving how implication can turn neutrality into narrative. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan's role continued to be distorted. Clips from the Joe Rogan Experience were re-uploaded with sensational captions that suggested exposure without evidence. Context was shaved away until tone replaced content. The idea that Rogan had confirmed something spread faster than any attempt to explain that he had not. Corrections, as usual, lagged far behind the claim. Then came the amplification phase. Creators who had nothing to do with the original audio jumped in to connect dots. They stitched unrelated headlines together, layering speculation until it felt cohesive. Old forum posts, long debunked, were reposted as if newly discovered. Screenshots of screenshots circulated without dates or sources. Each repetition added confidence. Each edit moved the story further from reality. Prince Andrew's name, already burdened by past controversies, was pulled deeper into the swirl, not by evidence, but by associative logic. If two names are controversial, the internet assumes a link must exist. It's a fallacy, but a powerful one. Once that pairing appeared in captions, the rumor gained emotional weight even as it lost factual footing. As the conversation grew louder, language hardened. Allegedly disappeared, if true, vanished. Assertions replaced caveats. The rumor stopped asking to be believed and started expecting belief. And with that shift came a more corrosive effect. Empathy eroded. Meghan wasn't being discussed as a person navigating relentless speculation. She became a symbol in a broader culture war about credibility, power, and media trust. Industry observers noted the familiar pattern. When a story can't advance with facts, it advances with feeling. Panic is a powerful motivator. So is outrage, so is the promise of a hidden reveal just around the corner. None of those require proof, only anticipation. The pressure to respond intensified unfairly. Commenters demanded statements that could only backfire. Denial would be framed as defensive. Engagement would be framed as damage control. Silence would be framed as confirmation. It's the classic rumor trap. Every exit is blocked by interpretation. Behind the scenes, the rumor economy churned. Thumbnails grew more dramatic, music more ominous, titles more declarative. Each piece of content borrowed credibility from the last, creating the illusion of corroboration where none existed. The story felt bigger because more people were talking about it, not because it was truer. What went largely unnoticed was the absence of journalism. No credible outlet published evidence. No reporter confirmed photos. No primary source stepped forward. The gap between chatter and verification widened, yet belief continued to solidify. This is the paradox of virality. The faster a claim spreads, the less likely people are to check whether it's real. By the end of this phase, fatigue set in for some viewers. A few voices began asking the obvious questions. Where are the photos? Who has seen them? Why hasn't a single reputable source confirmed anything? Those questions didn't dominate, but they mattered. They reminded the audience that skepticism is not denial, it's responsibility. Still, the rumor persisted, sustained by repetition and the human tendency to mistake consensus for truth. It no longer depended on Rogan, on Andrew, or even on Meghan's actions. It depended on the internet's appetite for scandal and its impatience with uncertainty. The next phase wouldn't hinge on new information. It would hinge on whether clarity could survive in a landscape where implication had already done its work, and whether the audience would accept the possibility that nothing was ever there to expose at all. By the time the third phase settled in, the story had reached its still, the damage was done. Search results paired names with loaded phrases. Clips circulated stripped of context. The rumor existed independently of belief. It had become residue. Even people who doubted it now had to navigate its presence. That's the quiet harm of implication-driven stories. They don't need to be true to leave a mark. Industry observers pointed out how familiar this arc was. A provocative suggestion, a powerful name, a controversial association, silence interpreted as meaning. Once those elements align, the internet fills in the blanks faster than facts ever could. And public figures, especially women, often bear the brunt of narratives they didn't create and can't control. What this phase ultimately revealed wasn't a secret scandal. It revealed how easily speculation outruns verification, how quickly audiences reward certainty over caution, and how dangerous it is when people confuse volume with validity. The story didn't persist because it was supported. It persisted because it was emotionally satisfying to those who already distrusted the subject. No photos were released, no evidence surfaced, no claims were substantiated, and yet many walked away feeling like they'd witnessed an exposure. That contradiction is the real takeaway. Because when a rumor reaches this stage, truth becomes optional. Belief does the work. And once belief settles, even definitive clarification struggles to undo the damage. This chapter doesn't end with a reveal or a denial. It ends with a warning about how easily implication can become conviction, about how silence is rarely allowed to remain neutral, and about how public imagination, once activated, doesn't wait for permission from reality. The story fades not because it's resolved, but because attention moves on. And long after the internet finds a new obsession, the residue remains, quietly reminding us that in the digital age, being accused isn't the same as being proven, but it can feel just as heavy. The final question isn't whether anything was exposed. It's whether we've reached a point where nothing needs to be. Before you scroll, pause, because what you just watched is a perfect example of how rumors don't need proof to feel real anymore. No photos, no confirmations, no credible reporting. Yet a narrative still took off, shaped by implication, repetition, and the internet's hunger for certainty. If you believe there's a difference between investigation and imagination, hit that like button right now. That single click tells the algorithm that context, restraint, and critical thinking deserve as much attention as shock value. Drop a comment and be honest. Do you think speculation has replaced accountability online? Or is silence automatically treated as guilt now, no matter what? This comment section isn't just for reactions, it's where we decide whether conversations stay thoughtful or spiral into damage. And subscribe seriously. Because stories like this don't end with facts, they end with beliefs. If narratives shift, if clarification finally appears, or if this rumor collapses under its own weight, you don't want to hear about it late or through distorted takes. Staying subscribed means staying informed without feeding misinformation. Stay locked in, stay skeptical, and remember, in a world where implication spreads faster than truth, choosing not to believe everything you're shown is a form of power.